It was in 1999, exactly 20 years ago, that I first heard of the place called Siachen. I was sent to cover the Kargil conflict between India and Pakistan through a combination of serendipity and a risk-taking editor called Vinod Mehta of Outlook. That's the time when people deployed in Kargil, Dras, Batalik spoke about Siachen and the importance of Siachen and why Pakistan and Pakistan's General Musharraf had tried to interdict the road going to Leh and beyond to Siachen. But it was not until 2006 when I came to Delhi as a reporter that I started to take interest in Siachen, and in 2013 is the time when I decided to write a book on what is called the Operation Meghdoot, which was started exactly 35 years ago on 13th of April 1984. It is India's longest continuous military deployment of both the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army. And how did it all begin, how it has been over the years, over these decades, and what transpires at those forbidding heights is something that cannot be captured in a film or in a book. It can be captured through remembrance, through experiences of the people who were deployed there. And we are very fortunate to have with us two of the pioneers of Operation Meghdoot. On my left, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, who was the first army man to drop down on a pass called Bilafondla. And on my right is Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, who is the man who perhaps was the first, not perhaps, but who was the first among the two pilots who had the opportunity to land on the Siachen glacier way back in 1978, almost 6 years before Operation Meghdoot began really officially in the summer of 1984. We will talk to them as we go along and then try and get some amount of clarity on what Operation Meghdoot has been and what it means to hold on to Siachen as far as India is concerned. I am Nitin Gokhale. So this is the book that I was talking about, written in 2013-14 and launched 2 days before the 30th anniversary of Operation Meghdoot on 10th of April 2014. But this book would not have been possible but for these two gentlemen here. So let me first turn to Air Vice Marshal Manmohan Bahadur, who, as I said, was lucky, I would think, to be the first among the two people to land on the Siachen glacier. What do you recall of that particular event?
You said that I was lucky. I was very fortunate in the sense that I had finished, we had started flying for Colonel Bull Narendra Kumar's expedition.
Right.
So the 20th of September, I remember, 1978, was the first time we were called to Div headquarters, rather a day before, and told that we had to take some supplies to a place called Siachen. Now, we had never gone there. We never heard the name Siachen. So we went on the map. We were briefed where it was. Normally, we would go along the Nubra Valley. At Sasoma, turn right, cross Sasarla, and go into Chungtash and DBO and other things. So this was the first time we were going beyond Sasoma along the valley. We had no idea. Anyway, we went and we landed at the base camp.
What is now the base camp?
What is now the base camp.
Right.
And the snout which is there, absolutely imposing it was. And to my understanding, to my recollection, I think it must have receded by now by maybe at least 50 odd meters. That's what I feel.
That's right.
It was huge and menacing, I still remember. Anyway, that was 20th of September, so we went and landed there, and whatever we had, we dropped. And then subsequently, there was another sortie that came up, and we would go to Camp 1, which was established, open the sliding door of the Chetak. We had a Chetak, which actually was for mail courier and other things. And since there is no snow in the other place, we had no skis.
Right.
So we used to fly over the glacier without skis.
Oh, okay.
And so we used to open the rear door of the Chetak and kick the gunny sack out. Normally it would be mutton and vegetables. That's what we used to do.
Right.
And there was one particular sortie that happened. That time squadron leader Chacha Kaushik, he was known as Chacha.
Okay.
He was the detachment commander.
Right.
And the earlier sorties was with Colonel Sambyal. So with Chacha we had gone, so he said, why don't we pick up their letters? So how to communicate to the people down there? We had no skis, we couldn't land.
Right.
So the Chetak, each rotor has got a tip cover.
Okay.
When you put it on ground, you tie the tips and so that they're secure, they don't flap.
Right.
So in the tip cover, we put, I wrote down, इसमें आप अपनी चिट्ठी लिख दीजिए और हम 10 मिनट में आ रहे हैं, उसमें डाल दीजिएगा. And we put it in that tip cover. We sort of weighted it with something and put it through, there's a pilot side, there's a small window.
Okay.
Through that we put it down and put it down like, drawing water from a well. That's what I've written. And we said, so he looked inside and picked out. So we were happy. We pulled it up and then went to camp 2,
right.
camp 3, dropped, came back to camp 1 and lowered it, thinking they would have written in those 15 minutes. But I still remember that guy was doing something and then didn't put anything. We were very angry. Kya ho gaya? Anyway, we pulled it up and there was a small packet. I still can never forget that. It was a locula eye drop 10%.
Oh.
Small packet.
Okay.
And when we opened it, there was a piece of paper. And actually it said, साहब हमारे पास लिखने के लिए कागज नहीं है. कृपया कागज लें. So that time I did have a briefcase.
Right.
I was a youngster. I was against. I said, this is like a bubble.
This is like a bubble.
I used to carry a school bag.
Okay.
Sling it around. So
Right.
I used to carry some few envelopes, the Fauji envelopes.
Right.
So rolled it up and threw it down. And after that, we made sure that we would drop letters and pick up letters from them through this drawing water from a well.
What a experience and what a beginning of what we now know as Operation Meghdoot. Really, it began officially in 1984.
That's correct.
But the fact that you could actually think of those soldiers down there about what they would feel to get letters or send letters, I think that shows the camaraderie that is there between soldiers in uniform. That's where it began. So excellent way to actually start off our conversation. General Kulkarni, 35 years ago, almost 35 years ago, you were a young captain. You had done a couple of, I think, mountaineering expeditions, Polar Bear 1 and 2, if I remember correctly. And then this day on Baisakhi, 13th April, came along. Just recall what happened in that previous night and the next morning when you landed at Bilafonda.
Before I tell you what exactly happened to what AVM Bahadur has just said, I have memories of 78 because we were doing the mountain warfare course over there and I was climbing Stoke Kangri, and at the time we were told that there is some expedition led by Colonel Kumar, who was the commandant of the high altitude warfare school, who had taken both the advanced and the basic courses across. So, it was for the first time that I heard to Siachen, and rightly so as a youngster it was. And then in 1982, when my battalion was inducted in Turtuk, that was the time when we first moved into Turtuk, 82, and then 83, and of course, then 84. My association with Siachen started from 1982, more as logistics to supply to the LRP, which was led then by Major Thapa.
It's the long range patrol.
Long range patrol,
right,
which was led by Major Thapa in 1982. And that's where we were all part of the mission to supply, go along with the Mi aircrafts or small aircrafts, Chetak, and land, drop, get back. 83, of course, I was leading the patrol there. So it was during that time when number of times you'd go to Bilafonda. And like he rightly brought out, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4. And surprisingly, 1983, and there was that Camp 4 still there. A lot of, you can say, bags of atta, rice, other things which are not used, still left there. And guess what do I find over there? A rat.
Oh, the rat could go up to that height and that low temperature.
It went there, or
it was carried
this way that it went along with those bags and they continued to survive over there.
Right.
And there was enough to eat. And we were also. And when I was going towards Indrakol, and because towards Indrakol, Camp 4, 5, 6, and then you went to Indrakol. And to Bilafonda from Camp 3, one took a left turn along the glacier and then moved to Bilafonda. Right. I said, let me go towards Indrakol and see. And what do I see? On the spine was this camp and with all these articles, sect, whatever, absolutely eatable.
Right.
I got them back, ate, and it was, there was no problem. So that experience of 83 and the logistic experience of 82 and then helped us to launch of Meghdoot in 1984. And it was at this point of time when suddenly it was decided, it was in 83, and again AVM Bahadur will remember, I think there was a strafing or there was a fixed wing aircraft which flew over Siachen then in 1978, and of course it was not a fixed wing aircraft which flew over us, but their choppers flew over us in 83. So that was an indication which probably came that they were planning on occupying the glacier. So in 83 when I was going to Bahadur, that's where I saw soda wrappers and those soda wrappers had marking. Now at that point of time I didn't know if it was Chinese marking or Japanese marking, all the scripts look alike. So I brought those soda wrappers back from there, and then General Rawat was the 15 Corps commander. He flew in the next day and he said, yeah, what is it that you've seen? I said, so these are the wrappers, most likely Chinese. And then they turned out to be Japanese, because there were Japanese mountaineers who were sponsored by Pakistan to come along
from the other side,
go across Siachen and then climb the Teremshare peaks.
Right.
Those are beautiful peaks. Now what they call it the Kumar logistic base, that area, entire Teremshare and all the peaks. So you got they were also surprised as to how come the rappers were on Bahadur. So that was the last that we heard of those rappers and everything. And then we reinducted. Again we were reinducted in 83. And then of course finally then in 84 on the 13th of April that it was decided that we should go and occupy. But before that, why 13th of April, what were we doing before that? And since 83 experience was with us, they told us that, look, at least a company worth of troops must be trained so that they're inducted in 84. And this we were told around 83, November, December, that this. So we started on acclimatizing, training. Some of those boys who were with me in 83 were part of the entire 84. And it carried on. And then finally, lots of sand model discussions took place and how to go about it and what is to be done. Then General Hoon, who was the Corps commander, 15 Corps then, probably had reported that Pakistanis were already in busy shopping for some high
snow suits and
clothing,
high altitude boots.
Clothing.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, and in one of the discussions, I remember they asked, would it be possible for you all to go? As a youngster, I said, yes, sir. There's no problem, I can always go. Since I'd been there in 83, what's the problem in 84? But not realizing, like AVM Bahadur rightly said, 83, 82 and even 78, the time was around September, August, September. And it was easier to go in August, September than to go in.
So it gets cold in
any day.
Any day.
Any day.
Yeah.
Because September will not be as cold.
No. In September and finally in October when we landed the first time, and I'll narrate that part later, we used to fly without any clothing in overall.
So you didn't realize that April will be cold.
So when General Chipper, I remember, he asked me, would it be possible for you to occupy Siachen, say March, April? I said, surely, sir, there shouldn't be a problem. With the existing clothing, I said, yeah, it should not be a problem because we went in 83.
Right.
But I now recollect that General Hoon gave me a dirty look to say that, how dare you say that you would be able to go and stay there in this kind of a clothing that you have. I thought that was the end of it. But he did ask me later as to why did you say you could go in the clothing that is. You know how difficult it is. And when I look back, I think he was absolutely right. I think the experience was
always there, yeah.
And being a very senior officer, number one. Number two, he has also served in Hawes. So he knew the difficulties that were there. He was also probably aware that the Pakis are shopping around and it is not easy to survive on the clothing that we had. And he wanted us to be equipped with down.
So your clothing, if I remember correctly, that way I've written in the thing because you told me that the clothing arrived on the previous night.
That was the best part. Now, having said that, having Brigadier Channa, who was the commander, he was asked as to what is the most suitable date. So he said 13th of April. Now, everybody looked at him. Now, why 13th of April? He said, no, it's Baisakhi, there's that and all. But he was a believer that it's a most auspicious day. And moment one said 13th, everybody looked around, maybe an unlucky day or something. Why has he chosen 13th? He said, no, it's the most auspicious day is Baisakhi and we will launch ourselves. But definitely it turned out to be lucky for us and unlucky for Pakistan. And 13th April was the launching. Now, till the 12th of April noon, we were all normal, same clothing that we were to go. And suddenly at around 4:30 or 5 in the evening, I see helicopters coming in.
And there would be Air Force helicopters.
Mi-8s. That time were Mi-8s.
Mi-8. The Mi-8 all flew in and we saw clothing being deducted. Oh, what's all this imported clothing nicely stacked from Switzerland and all over the European world? It landed up and we were all distributed in the evening and told that wear and be ready to launch the next day morning. So next day morning.
So before you get on to next day morning, I just want to get our viewers to understand what exactly happens in flying in those conditions, and especially in those years in Mi-8. What are the things that you look for, the dangers that you look for in as far as helicopter flying is concerned?
The first biggest problem is the fact that you start off from base camp, which is 12,000 feet, 12,500. So the air density is reduced. And during summer months, April, May, June, the temperatures actually are high for those altitudes. So the power that the engine gives out reduces drastically. Plus the power required by the aircraft, by the rotors to lift, that increases. So it's a double whammy sort of a thing. Hence, the payload that you can carry reduces drastically. So effectively what happens is that now we know that when we go to Amar Sonam and those high altitude posts, we carry in the first trip only 1 jerry can of fuel. So the first problem is power. Second is, since the air is so rare there and oxygen less, the engine tends to surge if you are not careful with engine handling. That means you suddenly, this is the collective here, if you suddenly demand power from the engine sharply, the engine may surge, or in a way, layman's term, the temperature increases and the turbines may melt. So you have to be very careful in handling that. So since the power margin is very less, and when you are approaching those helipads, the visual references go. At certain point, the speed indicator drops off, and then you are moving forward and you are moving fast because the density is less, so your airspeed is more. So it requires a lot of experience, and that is why all pilots who go there, they go through absolutely they may be absolutely fully ops in the planes, but they all go through a glacier syllabus where they are cleared for different altitudes, and there are certain helipads where they are cleared for specific helipads, and it takes anywhere from 7 to 9 months to clear a pilot to go as captain.
And sort of go to the extreme,
go to the extreme the higher post. But over the glacier, in any case, even at the Camp 1, for example, if you are not glacier cleared as captain, you will not fly as captain. So whether a CO or a flight commander or whatever who gets posted in goes through that syllabus, and then he goes in there.
So all this would have been put in much later after
much later.
84, much later. So
if I can just talk so in 1978, when squadron leader Monga landed the Chetak, of which I was the co-pilot, and fortunate, once again, it's just luck, maybe destiny. Well, I had finished my detachment and I had gone back to Jammu, and there was so I finished my detachment end of September, and I was in Jammu till there was a requirement of an engine change. So I was told that you have to fly an engine on 6th of October. So I went, there was a squadron leader Hoon in our unit. So here I flew, and we flew to Leh, carrying the engine in a Chetak. We landed at Leh after refueling at Srinagar, and I was having a cup of coffee, and we were supposed to come back. So we were ready to come back to Jammu when the requirement came for a casualty evacuation from Siachen. Now, the two pilots there, squadron leader Monga and squadron leader Dogra, unfortunately both late, because 1 month later they died in a crash near Khalsi.
My God, okay.
A Chetak crash. So they had not seen the glacier, and neither had squadron leader Hoon. I was the only chap who happened to be there who had gone to the glacier. And so I went with squadron leader Monga for the glacier,
that evacuation.
For the casualty evacuation. So there was no syllabus, there was no nothing. It was a Chetak, which is heavier, 300 pounds heavier. That's two passengers heavier. And we just went. And that story is different. I mean, we took off at somewhere around, must be 12ish or so. So it was afternoon. We crossed Khardungla and we crossed base camp. So I kept telling Skondla Monga, sir, this is the base camp. He had never been there. I said, this is the base camp and now this is camp 1 and this is camp 2. Now on the map, they had marked it correctly. It is the turn on to Teram Kangri, which is there, where they said the casualty is here. Now I was doing the map reading. I was a youngster and I missed it. I missed it. We went on, carried on, fat. That's what how the noise makes, the rotors make. And we actually, now when I think back, we reached almost Indira Kol. But we kept looking left, right, no casualty, nobody beyond camp 3. We turned back. And we normally used to fly, on the right side of the glacier, on the left side. He said, now let's fly on the other side. So now we were flying, and I remember very clearly, when I think back, it's there. As we were going like that, I found something moving on the left there, and that's where we found, desperately waving at us. So then he came. He landed there. He landed a Chetak there, and we didn't have masks or anything. It was hookah. It was the cylinder and the oxygen cylinder pipe coming and in the mouth. So we used to call it hookah.
Right.
So okay.
Taking
pure oxygen into the. So it was hookah. Okay. So he came, landing, wonderful landing. More importantly, now 2 casualties were loaded.
So the heavier.
So now it became that much heavier. And now he had gone out because the Chetak sliding door has to be removed, pushed back, and so he had got out. I was in the center seat as co-pilot. He went out, put the people, came back, and now he was huffing and puffing, obviously. No acclimatization and doing all this. So, and then he picked up the helicopter, must have been max power. I just can't imagine anything else. And then he took off, just grazing the thing, and we took off. Hair raising it was, absolutely. But he took off with 2 people on board. When I used to tell later, when I took over the unit and tell my people that that my flight commander landed a Chetak there and picked out 2 people at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
Nobody would ever believe. Okay, so then he did this and he took off, and then of course he was on the hookah.
And then he came back. So that's a very thrilling first landing on the Siachen Glacier.
What he's talking about, I've experienced it. And that's the only place where ibexes are found.
Right.
That's the place, and that's the only place on Siachen where you can see green grass. Little bit of green grass, there's no way. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult because similar kind of things happened with me in 83 when I was left on the spine of the Siachen Glacier, and the pilots told me, sorry, we can't fly, you have to jump. I said, my God, I have to jump? He said, yeah, you'll have to jump, otherwise you will not be able to fly. So they hovered low, I jumped on the aircraft and it took off.
And this is exactly what you did on 13th April. So let's come back to that now. 13th April 1984. You started off at what, 5 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, absolutely.
The first batch of people. How many of you?
So to begin with, those choppers came. The Air Force, about 6-7 of them suddenly all landed at the base camp, and we were 4 to fly, 2 in each of these cheetahs. And I remember the name of the pilot, I think Wing Commander Sandhu, VRC. He was the pilot. And we were 4, 2 in 1. With me was a boy called Prakash, and the other had Ramesh and that Mandal, that operator. And all of us.
He was the radio operator.
Yeah, the radio operator. We had only one radio operator by the name of Mandal over there. And we had done the recce a day previous. And it was okay. It was a very clear day. So was this on the 13th of April in the morning. It was very clear. But we hadn't flown so early in the morning. It was very, invariably the choppers flew very early in the morning and finished their flying by 10:30, 11, so that, like he rightly said, after 12, generally nobody flies in such high altitudes. So we landed, and I remember the pilot telling me, I'm sorry, I won't be able to land. I said, what do you mean you won't be able to land? We've come early only to select a helipad and land. He said, I don't think we'll be able to land because I'm not too sure. Because we were not to land at Belafondla, we were to drop much short of Belafondla. So he wasn't very clear between Belafondla and the place about 3-4 kilometers short of Belafondla. He said, maybe we think maybe soft snow and we might just sink. So not advisable. We jump. I said, jump, all right, no problem.
But before jumping, you did something
Yeah,
extraordinary.
I said, only thing is, if I have to jump, I must be sure that I don't sink here. He said, yeah, that is sure. So we were carrying this Ataka bori.
Gunny bags.
So, gunny bags, Ataka bori, just below the seat. And I said, let's throw that down and see how much does it sink. So we threw it, it didn't sink. So I said, it's quite hard. I said, no problem. Hover low, I'll jump. So he hovered low and I jumped. Moment I jumped, I didn't sink either. So it was okay. And that was fortunate because it was early hours of the morning. So even the snow or ice or what, it's absolutely reasonably hard. And we jumped, I jumped, the radio operator jumped. The moment we had jumped, then we gave a signal to the other chopper that it could land. So the moment we took off, the other one came and landed over there. So it was firm. And so 4 of us were there. And within about the next sortie, by the time it would come, it would take about an hour because it would take about 20 odd minutes for these choppers to go back to base camp, probably then get the others to land. So we had about 30-40 minutes or whatever the time was before the other choppers came, and I found this Mandal, who was the radio operator. He suddenly had been hit with a high altitude pulmonary edema and he just sat down like a dead duck there. I said, what happened, man?
So first day, first morning.
The very first one, we had a casualty. That was the Mandal radio operator, only one in that platoon of us.
Absolutely.
I said, okay, it doesn't matter.
So was he sent back?
Yeah, moment the next choppers came, then he was sent back.
So now you are without a radio operator?
Now we were without a radio operator, and well, the radio sets were there, but no radio operator. So we were 30 who were supposed to have landed on Belafonte. Now we were left with 29. So by about 11:30, everybody, two, all of them came and we settled out. And around the same time, the weather turned bad.
So now we'll stop here because this is a fantastic narration of what exactly started off, how they came on the first day, instead of 30 people, 29 people. Clear weather, absolutely brilliant weather, and then suddenly it turns bad. And that's what Siachen is all about. But we will come back to the entire story of Siachen, or at least part of that story, in the next part. And we will continue our conversation with these two brave hearts who have braved the weather, the conditions, and of course the danger of the Pakistani firing on the other side that time in the early deployment of Operation Meghdoot. Don't go away, we'll come back soon.